Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for making the effort to come to one of the last talk. It's a type of talk I'm not used to do because I mostly not speak about myself, but more about project I'm working on. But this time it's a bit specific, so I will explain a bit my background, and then I will speak about what I faced as changing slightly my area of competence. So I put a mandatory quote from an author. It's absolutely not related to the talk. But okay, so who am I? My name is Emilien Le Jamtel. It's not Harry. I was misleading you. So today I'm the team leader of the DevSecOps teams of CERT-EU. I will explain a bit more what is CERT-EU on the next slide. So the DevSecOps team is responsible for IT operation, engineering, and development, mostly. So it's a team of 12 people today. And what is specific with my background is that I actually had I have 15 years of experience in IT security, and I've been in different areas. So I started as a pen tester and security consultant 15 years ago. Then, after being security consultant, I entered finally into CERT-EU when I became a Threat Intelligence Analyst. Then I have most of my experience as a digital forensics and incident response and a bit of detection engineering. And finally, I moved now as a team leader. Personally, so I'm father of 3 kids, so you can guess that my time between last-minute incidents and working on project maybe need to be divided with taking care of the family. And the other issue I have is I'm spending way too much time working on other stuff which is not related to my job. Reading books, playing board games, writing side project. I actually presented 2 of them during the first conference the previous days. So yeah, that it is. So CERT-EU is the cert of European institutions, bodies, and agencies, meaning all constituents are all of the institutions like European Parliament, European Commission, European Central Bank, the Council, European Council, up to the small agencies. I think the smallest one is less than 20 people. So there is a large, broad type of, I would say, maturity that people will work on. I mean, big organizations, small organizations, which have their own security team, and they are spread all around Europe. So it's quite an interesting, I would say, area to play with. So if we look a bit at the internal structure, sorry, it may not be super visible, but basically we have what we call the pillars of CERT-EU, the different areas. So I worked in actually 3 of them already. Threat Intelligence, digital forensics and incident response, and now the DevSecOps, but I also helped the other team, especially offensive security, because it was my previous background when they had their first activities. I was actually a support to share a bit of my knowledge. So today, DevSecOps teams is actually serving all of those other areas because we provide IT support, engineering, and development. So yeah, that's it. Okay, so now I will go a bit more into details about my past experience. I mean, why I liked what I did and why I got actually frustrated about it. And actually what drives me today to move into this new position. Okay, so offensive security, it's cool. Okay, basically what you do every day when you have a new mission, a new engagement is, oh, can I break this stuff? Okay, what is this weird API endpoint? Can I abuse it? Okay, you do vulnerability scanning and you find some interesting stuff. Okay, what's the path I could get to get domain admin against this target? So that's very, I would say, satisfying job because when you reach your goal and when you break something and when you find something cool, okay, it's actually very interesting. But I was working for a private company at that time. So we had contract with other big companies, okay? And then after some years, you do a pen test against a target. And every year, month of November, the big company have extra budget, they have to burn it. Okay, so hey, let's order a pen test. Okay, so that's a way to burn and it may be useful. So you do that year 1. Next year they contact you again, same target, same scan. Okay, weird. I find the same stuff, and I even find more vulnerabilities. Year 3, okay, and then you just get lazy. Okay, let's copy-paste the report from last year, add 2 more pages, and there we go. So the question at that point of my career was, okay, is it actually useful? Do people actually care about the fact that I'm breaching them, that I discover vulnerabilities? Okay, so what's next? What should I do next? So I quit my job, and I entered CERT-EU. And I had this great opportunity to actually move into the cyber threat intelligence team. Because at the time I got recruited, what they wanted was people with a technical background, okay, to be able to help work on cyber threat intelligence. Well, some years ago, we didn't have all of the fancy tools that we have today, so it was mostly a lot of manual stuff, reading report, extracting relevant indicator, link them to specific threat actor, doing this kind of mapping. And that's cool, because you learn a lot of stuff. You read a report about a very super trendy APT, and you say, wow, when I was a red teamer, okay, I didn't think about that. So, okay, the first years, the first months, I would say, it's really cool. You learn a lot of stuff, and then you go to the data. Okay, that's actionable, could be used for detection, could be used for incident response, could be used for threat hunting. Okay, you discover those stuff, and then you start tracking. You say, okay, so those guys, they use this technique there, they use this technique there. Okay, so if we are targeted by this type of stuff, which kind of data should I have? And that's it. So it's cool, you're learning, and you start, feeding your SIEM, feeding your IDS, your IPS, or your alerting system, and then you discuss with your colleagues from the SOC, and they complain all the time. Like, hey, I had 600 alerts. What the hell did you do? Why did you put that there? Okay, that's obviously legit. There is not enough context. I actually did a talk 4 days ago, 3 days ago, whatever, about this issue in cyber threat intelligence. I mean, how you actually select the relevant data, okay? And this talk is actually a combination about my past experience, both in CTI and in the FIR. So I started seeing the other side. And I say, okay, are we in a bubble? Are we like just, kids playing around, reading stuff and writing nice report and feeling like, yeah, we understand everything, we understand the threat actor, we're having fun, okay? And how can I actually make this data more useful? So I actually moved to another team, digital forensics and incident response. With my experience I had in the CTI team and my experience on the offensive side of things, it actually went pretty well. Quite quickly, I became one of the main analysts in CERT-EU. I actually ended up as a deputy head of the team, and I liked it. I mean, incident response is cool, like the other two stuff, but in a different way. So all the time you ask yourself, okay, what happened? How did those guys get in? Which technique did they use? And then you start mapping yourself with what you did in CTI. Okay, say, okay, so that's this technique. And it's great. You have big incidents. You have to work on stuff you don't know, and okay, because I used to be a security consultant, every time somebody asks me, I'm saying, yeah, I'm an expert, and then, you read the documentation. So yeah, you start mapping, you write your report, you write your incident, and then after some time, you see again the same and same incident. And then frustration again. Frustration was mostly coming from the data, okay? So basically, as the way we operate in CERT-EU is that people doing incident response like me were also doing a bit of the monitoring job, because it was important for us to actually not lose, your hedge about what people from the SOC are seeing, because you may be the nice guy just doing reverse engineering, but actually knowing exactly what's happening on the SOC side is always useful, because then you start figuring out what's the issue and where you can help. So again, I started complaining about the CTI guys that I used to be. Like, why do you have so many alerts? Why are those indicators not good enough? Okay. And then I started complaining about our engineering team, saying, okay, why don't I have access to this data? Why did we not detect that? Oh, because, yeah, it was not indexed properly, and then the search was not good, and all this type of little stuff that people working in our field are facing on a regular basis. And then you start saying, okay, why is our building capability so slow? Like, why do we not, push forward faster, bigger, and start, okay, I have this script, should be in production tomorrow, so then we start detecting, and yeah, okay. And finally, why the hell we have all of our incidents starting on Friday evening? You plan your weekend with your family and everything, and then boom, okay, big incident. You have to analyze 200 machines before Monday, because then the constituent will start screaming that nothing happened the last 2 days and this kind of stuff, okay? And just at that time, I was having my third kid. So I went to my boss, Sad, which is there, okay? And I knew that a position will be opening in the dev team, and I say, okay, I could actually, change a bit, have a more I'm not saying less work, but more stable workload. Like, okay, I work during the week, maybe at night during the weekend, but I will not burn my weekend plans because we have a big incident. And he was nice enough to say, yes, you can take it, but you're also taking the engineering and IT operation team, and you build a new team. So I end up with more people than expected, way more workload than expected, but I actually like it, so it's fine. OK, so I moved to the DevSecOps team leader. So when I was initially thinking that I will use all of my past experience, I will use all of the frustration I built during my previous experience to do something great, like improve all of detection and response capability, automate everything, have the best data ever, have everything indexed properly, have this kind of automated response capability and everything. I'm the mindset of a hacker because of my past experience of offensive security. So yeah, OPSEC, okay? Let's be sure that if somebody get in with the same skills that I have and my offensive security has, they can do nothing because we'll be the best in the world, okay? Fix everything, automate everything, do magic, basically. Yay. Well, did not really happen as expected, but okay. We'll go there one day, I hope. OK, so now this part, we'll speak about what preconception I had about what I will be able to do and how I was misleading myself about what to do. Okay, and the first thing I discovered is the pacing difference. So the pacing difference is, when you're working in OffSec or in the FIR or all those stuff, it's, I would say, short time objectives. Okay, you have an incident, you run. It's a sprint. Okay, you try to figure out what happened. The entry point, are they still there? Can I kick them out? Okay, which data am I missing? Who can I get in touch with to get the data I'm missing? And it's really like giving fast result. Okay, you don't care initially about the quality. You want to know what happened. Okay. And when I moved into DevSecOps, I say, OK, I go to some of my colleagues and I say, hey, we have this stuff. It needs to be deployed. It needs to be patched. And then you discover that the 2/3 of your team is busy patching all day all of the stuff we have because you have a critical vulnerability every week. And then you discover that your engineering team is actually working with several constituents to fix this kind of log engine correlation, which is not working, but they are not getting answer from the IT operation people from the constituent side. And yeah, you discover that you have to take stuff slightly slowly. And you have to be careful about what you're doing. I will speak a bit more about that, but by trying to rush into some projects, we may actually create more issues than the issue we are trying to fix. Okay, and that's a really change of mindset. I had to learn to plan stuff. When you're in the FIR, you do not plan stuff, you just act. So, yeah, I'm getting there. We'll see. Quality. Okay, so that's an important one. You're working on a project, you're working on an incident, and then you have some weird data, and you just write a script, okay? And I'm not coding like a developer, I'm coding like a hacker. So if it works, make it prod, okay? Is it maintainable? Does anybody else is able to read what you're doing? Who cares? It works. Use it, okay? And the thing is, I started a bit with this approach, okay? Do like quick proof of concept, this agile, Scrum methodology, and whatever. And it's great at start. And then you have one of the main developers of your team which decide to take a job to another place. And then the second developer of your team is end of contract. And then you figure out that the two guys which were doing all of these weird, not documented work the way you used to do, you have to train another developer for 3 months to actually just figure out what the hell was this script doing, okay? Where is it running? So one nice issue we had is that sometimes stuff breaks, okay? So you had this nice automated process. It works for, I don't know, the last 2 years. And one day it breaks because the vendor of a specific product changed the API without telling you, of course. It would be too easy. And then you spend half a day or a full day just figuring out, OK, where is the script which was automatically uploading stuff there running? OK? Oh, yeah, it was set up by this guy which left 1 year ago. And the admin is on holiday. So you start actually hacking into your own network to figure it out, okay, Oh, it works. Okay, that's where offensive security skills get useful. Okay, so you can actually breach your own network to figure out how it works. Huh? Okay, silos. This one is interesting. Okay, we all have our, I would say, expertise in a domain. And the thing is, sometimes we do not necessarily discuss with the other teams. And that's where my background as being in most of the team in CERT-EU was useful, is that after some point you figure out that the project you had with your colleagues when you were in the FIR, okay, is actually a clone of a project that the guy in your engineering team is doing. So in this case, we had this big log data dump, okay, which is connected to the network of our constituents to get access to some data, okay? And at some point of time, we're figuring out that we missed the detection because the data was not properly indexed, okay? And then, as engineering, we say, okay, let's try to figure out how we can make some dashboards and some automation to figuring out when something is not going as expected. Like, okay, we are losing data from this specific source, and we used to have data from it, okay? Nice project, you start, building IDs, have somebody coding, and then 3 weeks later, you have a coffee with your colleagues from the FIR, and you say, hey, okay, by the way, you remember when we missed this stuff? So now we have this nice script, which is actually, going through the API to see if we have a discrepancy of data between what we had yesterday and what we have today. Say, okay, why are you doing that? To detect if logs are missing. Say, oh, okay. So both of us, team, spent 3 weeks working on the exact same stuff. We should have discussed before. We should share what we're working on with the others. Expertise, yeah, like this one. Okay, so when you're coming from technical fields, or when you're coming from any area and you move to the next one, you have your preconception about how things work. And you think that it becomes so obvious for you that actually the others, for them, it's not necessary. So in this case, so we had this nice application that we're using, and we need to make some automation around it. So I start discussing with the developer, say, okay, we could write a script to query the API, so it was GraphQL-based API, and you say, okay, you query it, then you extract some data, make some extra queries, add some filters, and then you push this data into another system. Okay, for me, say, okay, it's cool, it's API-based, everything's all right. And then after some weeks, he told me, yeah, but it's complicated, the documentation is not there, and say, why do you need documentation? Just brute force the API endpoints, or just parse the website and see if there is any GraphQL queries in there and just reverse them. I mean, that's not how developer works? Huh? Apparently not. So yes, I had misconception about the way people were actually handling issues. And on the other side, the way I work, I had to meet some nice colleagues at some point to tell me that's not the way you should be doing that. So there is, especially the cases about cloud. So I was creating with another colleague some cloud automation to actually mount some machine and create scalability to be sure that's a proxy. And we were actually mounting VMs and stuff like that. I mean, why are you doing that? I mean, you actually use infrastructure as code, you actually use trigger, you actually do all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I spent a bit of time, but it was a good learning experience. And I really enjoyed that my colleagues, which can be annoying at some time, actually corrected me. Yay. I hope he's not watching the stream now. Okay. And finally, I think that the biggest trap from anybody moving to management, micromanagement. So I know a lot of people face that. Okay, so basically, when we start a project, when we try to improve something, I usually have a good idea about how I see the implementation. So initially, when I started this position, I had tendencies to, go on a regular basis, see the developers, the engineers, the people in IT operation, and ask them, okay, how do you do that? And say, you should not do it like that. I think it will be better this way. And so the hardest part of moving to management is to be able to accept that the way it will be done is not the way you would have done it, okay? And trust your colleagues to do it their own way, but to do it properly, to deliver the result you expect, okay? And that's something I'm, again, today still struggling with, okay? With some of my colleagues, I have tendency to say, are you sure that's the way you want to do it? are you sure it's not the best way like that? Huh? Yeah, so it happened, and that's something which is difficult, and I'm trying to go over it. Huh? And the other part of that, you have to be honest, is that when they are working on technical stuff, it's probably more interesting than the paperwork I have to do as a manager. So, like I say, yeah, I cannot do this paperwork because I have to help this colleague do some technical stuff, it's the usual. Okay. So now in this part, I will speak a bit about some changes I bring into the team, or not necessarily me, but the change in things I became a manager by listening to my colleagues and to work together to make some stuff better. So yes, expertise. So I explained to you that we had those cases where different teams were working on the same stuff, or that some people were not just understanding what the other were doing, but even inside of the DevSecOps team, sometimes my colleague from IT operation do not understand why this guy from engineering needs this specific setup, and they do not even know what the software we developed internally is actually doing. Okay? So we say, okay, we need to speak more, we need to have more presentation. So there is this nice initiative which was launched in CERT-EU, is this kind of lunch talk. So anybody from any team can take half an hour, just send a message to everybody in the chat saying, okay, I will present this new, I don't know, process injection technique. Half an hour, bring your sandwich, I will do a quick presentation. So people from NorthSec do that. People from DFIR had an interesting case. They say, hey, we found that an attacker used a specific technique, or we have to use a specific new methodology to do, or incident response and find some evidences, so they present to the other. And not only it actually helps people to work together, but it actually creates new ideas. Because of the perspective and the knowledge of the others, they may actually come an idea which may be helpful for the other team. And I try to do as well some matchmaking between experts. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, really depends on the person. So the idea is that, okay, when we have a specific project or a specific issue to solve, you take one guy from your development team, one guy from our engineering team, and say, okay, work together on this case. Yay. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because people are, have different way of thinking. But you need to try, because then the result may be way, way better if you actually just ask one guy to do it. So, yeah. And finally, yes, the last part is interesting. So because I've been in 3 teams, I figured out when I arrived in DevSecOps that all 3 teams had a different way to manage projects, internal projects. So my boss started complaining to me that he had no visibility about the project we were working on, okay? Because then he had to look in very different places or actually ask to the team leaders of every team where the status of the project. So we actually work on consolidating the way we do project in CERT-EU. So then we have a common way of doing it, and it's way, way easier for tracking. Okay, so the good thing of having a hacker mindset is that what I try to bring every time we have new ideas, we want to deploy a new technology, start a new project, is I'm always thinking like, how can I break it? Where is the weakness? Okay, what happens if I put down this server? What happens if somebody gets access to this specific server? And that's not necessarily something I discovered with experience that people coming from the pure IT or engineering world will think about. They have specification, it needs to work. Okay. Now they have specification, it needs to work and be secure. So one example is we wanted to deploy SSO technology to facilitate the life of everybody. Like, okay, you authenticate once, it's secure, you use two-factor authentication, and then once you authenticate in the morning, no more 2FA, this huge list of 2FA you have in your Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. You have 600 lines, and you have to figure out which one is actually giving you access to which one. Okay, so we started like that, and at some point in the project, we say, okay, but are we not creating a single point of failure? If this server goes down, nobody can work because nobody can authenticate. So we took a step back and we say, okay, let's design it to make it highly scalable, to make it resistant to attack, to make it resistant to patching fuck up. This kind of stuff. And then we took a step back, took a bit more time, and finally, focusing on automation and scalability is key, because I'm working on so many stuff that I have to be lazy at some point, okay? So if I have to do something more for 3 times in my life, I will write a script to do it for me. Yeah. And again, OPSEC in project management. So because we started, migrating the way we do project management in one single point, something we wanted to include is this kind of operational security into it. We even have a dedicated virtual team with people from DFIR, Offensive Security and IT Operation, to work on a project to improve our operational security. Okay? And that's extremely important to have as much as possible in your team moving there, because when you always have offensive people in this type of meeting and designing of project, people start changing their mindset. And I had a recent case with one of my cloud developer, which used to do this kind of automated deployment of thousands of stuff everywhere, and that's great. It's got in, it's got out, blah, blah, blah. And then we had a case when we kind of exposed some services we should not have, because, but it was fast, it was working, it was everything. And recently, when we had similar type of project to work on, he said, okay. I don't want that to be exposed. So before putting up my automation and all my scripts, okay, let's do a quick assessment about what will be exposed, what connection will be able from this service if they are breached. So already it starts working. So people which used to just move forward with all the knowledge start thinking about, but these offensive guys are crazy people. Okay, what would they do if I actually do that? And that's great. So that's more or less the end of my talk. And so am I a manager now? I don't know. I like what I'm doing. I like the people I'm working with. I'm still facing challenges. Is actually somehow I still do technical stuff. I mean, I presented 2 projects at first, technical project. And I think it's important for me, personally, to not get too detached from the actual ground technical work. And I hope I will be able to do that for the future. So, yeah. I hope, if it was not useful, that at least it was entertaining. Right.
Thank you so much. That was great. We have about 5 minutes for questions. Any questions? Yeah, right here. Thanks. Oh, yeah. Should I let him have it?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
For something that you did like on the corner of a table, it's very good presentations. I really like it. So, but it's not my point. Just one question about deduplication or duplication of work. I'm a kind of manager too, but and sometimes I see that duplication of work is useful, where you see competing things together and you see how they work, or they could be improved, and the duplications was useful, and then sometimes you have discussions to not deduplicate, and then you don't do anything because it's only discussion about deduplications and so on. What's your feeling about duplicate work?
Yeah, I think the issue with duplicate works is the same like refactoring. It's the same issue. Okay, basically you say you do it in one way, and maybe it's not the best one. So there is some advantages into the duplication of work, because it's still useful if at some point you figure out that you're doing the duplicated work. And what happened in our case is that actually the end result we had from this project to detect missing logs and not properly indexed logs, I think ended up as a better solution because we had the approach from the SOC team and what is their vision of the issue, and the engineering team, which had a deep knowledge and understanding about the way data is indexed. So it may be useful. The main issue I see with the duplication of work is that we are already overwhelmed with projects, okay, and you want to optimize your time of your team. So, I mean, there is pros, there is cons. And refactoring is the same. So we had something working, and then at some point of time, one of my developer, the annoying one, doing it like that. I mean, okay, so he told me, just give me a month, and I will redo your same project, but in a better way. Okay, let's see the priorities and then this stuff. And he was right at the end that and because he's not always listening to me, he actually did it anyway. And that's true that the end result is actually way better. So.
Okay, other questions?
Cool.
Okay, I think that's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.